Chioma&Emeka. And of course, we're very much more than happy to welcome you all to today's episode. Of course, I am your faithful host, Chioma&Emeka, and with me is
Emeka Vincent Duru.
So, today has been
Amazing. Choma, why are you looking so beautiful today again? What's the problem? Why do you always kill our viewers with your amazing beauty?
I mean, what can I say? It's the Lord. Okay, so, just to dive into it.
Okay.
Today we're going to be discussing what we call the Cashflow Quadrant. This Cashflow Quadrant was developed by Robert Kiyosaki, which is also the author of the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you must have heard us, mention him quite a few times.
Yeah, we have actually mentioned Robert Kiyosaki, the author of the Rich Dad Poor Dad, the guy that wrote the Cashflow Quadrant, and so many books out there. So we're about to dive into the Cashflow Quadrant.
Yes.
Robert Kiyosaki.
So definitely, as you guys have seen, today's topic is the Cashflow Quadrant. Before we go into discussing what it is, I need to first of all, explain to you all what is the Cashflow Quadrant. Well, the Cashflow Quadrant represents, different methods of gaining income. The truth is, everybody falls within these, four, thank you very much, four categories. People fall within these four categories. As long as you're an income earner, as long as you're making money in this world, you fall within one of the four of them. So today we're going to first of all, enlighten you on what it is, and then we're going to, of course, again, discuss the different topics, discuss different questions that associate ourselves with the Cashflow Quadrant. Okay? So I'm going to show you exactly what this is, what the quadrant looks like. Perfect. So, as you guys can see, on the left side of the quadrant, you have what we call the employee and self-employed. And on the right hand of the quadrant, you have the business owners and the investors. So, let's dive into it.
All right, thank you, Choma. I think the cash flow quadrant for me is how wealth or riches or money is being built. And every one of us actually falls into this particular quadrant or categories. Like we say, is a chart that explains how people in the 21st century generate wealth, unlike the 1980s and the 80s. So this basically is a way, and we are going to be explaining how people fall into this quadrant. Like you say, the employee quadrant, which a lot of us, or 90% of the world, falls into.
So let's start with each of them, and then we will go into the discussion of this. So firstly, we have the employee quadrant, we have the self-employed quadrant, we have the business owners, and we have the investors. So employee quadrant. The employee quadrant, I think about 90% of people fall within this quadrant.
Yes.
I mean, we all know who an employee is now. Everybody kind of goes to work. An employee is somebody that works for somebody. As long as you're working for somebody or working under somebody, you could be at management level, you could be at the bottom of the pyramid, you are still an employee. And an employee basically means that, you do the work. You exchange your time for money. Right, Emeka?
Yes, actually, I see the employee quadrant as a trap. I see it as a trap in the sense that it worked before in the 80s. The employee actually works for our fathers. It works for our uncles and those that actually, those that actually plugged into this particular quadrant when the revolution of wealth creation hasn't started.
That would be the Industrial Revolution?
Yeah, that's the Industrial Revolution. Yes, so a lot of people fall into this quadrant, like I said earlier, and it's not wrong to be there. It's not error. But permit me to say, Choma, it's actually an error. But if you're starting, it's not an error to be there.
Okay.
Because for you to even navigate yourself from there, it needs mindset. And good number of us actually don't even understand that we are in a trap box if you're an employee. So I think that's it for me about employees. That's
Okay, so now that's basically what the employee quadrant is. So now we go into the self-employed. People that are, tired of employee quadrants decide to move into being self-employed. A self-employed person is a person that basically, they decide to own their small business. I would say, the caterers that, own their own catering, businesses, a bit self-employed. The caterers are self-employed. Then you also have like anyone that's like running a
this.
small business from
I
the
think the
malam
beauty shops,
any the malams on your street.
even some lawyers, some entrepreneurs, many entrepreneurs actually
fall
that
into this.
this self-employed quadrant. And the thing is, people in the E and S quadrant, they actually don't know that they are in a trap because one, they exchange their time for money, and
Exactly.
it's an error. You work for 365 days only for you to get salary for like how many months? 12 months, 12 times. Is a big error. We spend money every day. So people just fall into that category and they don't even know.
Which is then the problem with this categories. They use what we call no leverage. There is a principle of leverage, which I would say most people on the right hand side, to the business owners and the investors use. They are the ones that use leverage. People on this quarter, what they do on the left, if you're on the left hand side, you exchange your time for money. It means if you do not work, think of it. As an employee, if you don't go to work, do you think your boss is going to pay you? If you call in, okay, I'm sick today, the man is going to say, I'm deducting that from your paycheck. And if you're self-employed also, if you close your shop for 1 month, we both know that you ain't going to make no money. So, this is what is on the left-hand side. So let's migrate into the right-hand side. Emeka, please.
All right, before we migrate into the right hand side, there is this principle of wealth creation that people undermine or don't even take serious. When it comes to wealth creation, trust me, the principle of wealth will never change. It can never change.
Never.
It's just the same. And people haven't understood this. When it comes to wealth creation, it's not about hustle. The key word there is not hustle. We think it's hustle.
Everyone
Like,
is working so hard.
trust me, everybody works. But the definition of we working and the definition of a rich man or a wealthy man working is quite different. The wealthy man or the rich man, per se, uses what they call leverage or leverage rather. And those in the B and I quadrant, they apply the concept of leverage in terms of wealth creation. And trust me, that's the best thing to do.
Yes, so you must be on the right hand side. So business owners, who are business? When we say business owner, we don't mean small, but meaning big business owners.
Okay.
People that own franchises, people that own a stream of hotels. You can talk about McDonald's. McDonald's is a franchise. This is a big business owner.
Yeah,
Exactly. So people like these employ the principle of leverage. When we say you're a big business owner, it means you have about 500 to over employees that's working under you. It also means that you do not have to exchange your time for money. Business owners barely appear at their working place. They come in, they supervise what's going on, but it does not halt their cash flow. Whether they decide to work today or not, they're still gonna make their money because what? Instead, they employ the principle of leverage, which is basically working less and less but getting more value for their money because they've, created a system. They've halted the fact that even if they do not work, they will still make money. So, Emeka, please take us through what are the investors? What is the difference between the investors and the business owners?
Okay, actually, the investors are people that use their money to create more money. It's as simple as that. And also, leverage applies there. If you're not a big business owner, you have to be an investor. Trust me. And what I mean by investors, those are not the people that use 100,000 to go into small investment. That's not how wealth is created. Trust me, you can get rich but there is a big difference between getting rich and being wealthy.
Exactly.
There is a
I
very huge difference. I think the investors, or I know the investors, are the people that use tens of millions, like 100 million, 200 to billions to
invest in different projects.
Exactly.
I mean, what kind of investments? I'm thinking real estate.
Yes, I think banks are actually a full-on investment
Did you
state.
say telecommunication to something?
Yes.
Big investment.
Yes,
I
actually.
thought so too.
The banks, because if you deposit over 100 million and the bank tells you in so year or 1 year, you'll be having a return of 10%. Just imagine 10% of that. Not like people going into Bitcoin. To some people, sorry, all my Bitcoin guys. To those people going into Bitcoin, that's a way of investing. But you can't compare Bitcoin to gold. Gold is the beautiful way to go into it. Gold's value never drops. The volatility of gold doesn't go.
Really?
So, but we are not actually going into Bitcoin and gold. Let's just keep it here before the cash flow quadrant. So.
Okay, so yes, before we dive into our discussion for today, we wanted to just explain these quadrants, and then so now we're going to go into today. We've streamlined 5 different questions that are going to help you better understand what it means to be moving from the left-hand side of the quadrant, which is the side of no leverage, to the right-hand side, which is the right-hand side, which is the side that actually employs leverage. So the first question that we have been asked is, again, what is leverage? People are seem to try. So,
okay.
As we have said earlier, or as we've actually said, leverage basically, for me, leverage basically means, how would I put this? I would say it means working less, but gaining more value for your money. I mean, I would define a leverage system. Leverage system is the ability for a person to influence a system or an environment in a way that actually multiplies their outcome without an increase in their resources or energy capabilities. That's how I would put leverage for me. Because I feel like it's what I see leverage as a small cost, high returns. You work smarter, not harder. Because working harder doesn't genuinely mean that you're actually increasing your value. I mean, think of it. Some people work 40 hours in a week. They're working 40 hours, but they're still earning the same income. They're putting in more effort for promotion that would come in the next 5 years, the next 10 years. They are not actually creating more value. A leverage system means that you do less, but you gain a lot more. I mean, Paul Getty always said this. I would rather have 1% of 100 people's effort than 100% of my own effort. I mean, just think about this. What does that honestly mean? It genuinely means that he would prefer to, what we call distribution of labor. For a lot of people to do small parts of something, than for him to do the entire cumbersome work. Emeka, please. For you, what would you say leverage, or you say leverage system actually means?
Well, Chioma, you just said it all. Leverage system is simply having a support, a structure, or a platform where people exchange their time for money, and where you actually get to pay some manual levels, where you get to pay some people that have the manpower to create wealth, which honestly I don't think is an error. It's not good. And what I mean by paying people or giving out some monetary values to empower people or to leverage on people to create wealth is, we all started as employees. Let's take it back to the quadrant, the cash flow quadrant. We all started as employees. I could remember when my boss used to come into work by 12 p.m. And trust me, I can't. 12 p.m. in the afternoon.
I wish I could do that as
you
an
will.
employee.
No, my boss, not me. You're getting
Of course,
it.
I mean your boss.
And me as an employee, when he gave me a time that I should resume by 8, then I was undermining the principle of wealth creation. I was undergoing some rigorous path of creating wealth. So my boss used to tell me by 8 o'clock in the morning, a.m., I have to be there. And I come in by 8 o'clock, arrange the place, just to wait for this man to come by 12.
Ooh.
That's leverage. He was leveraging on me. For a lot of us asking what leverage is, he was leveraging on my effort. And a lot of us, because he had to employ like 10, but I still consider him then as a small business owner. So, like we said, the big business owner is one that has over 500 persons working for him. And that means that man is actually leveraging on 500 people just to pay them peanuts at the end of the month. That's what leverage means. Like you said, Chioma, forget you always say, I'd rather have 1% of 100 man's effort. Now imagine having 10% of 100 man effort. That's like,
that means you don't have to
do the math. It's like 10,000 or 8,000. Yeah, 10,000 to 8,000 effort of 100% doing a minimal work or a job for you. So I think leverage is sexy. Trust me, it's very, very sexy.
I like this,
and if you're out there hustling or working, please try as much as possible to
employ or use the principle
of leverage. And Chioma, I would like us to actually discuss more or actually teach people, show people how they can use leverage. But that's not the topic.
That is not for this week. Don't worry, we will show you and tell you more about leverage. Okay, so the second question that we have to address is advantages of using leverage over those that don't. So what is the advantage of a person that uses leverage over the person that doesn't employ the principle of leverage?
All right, the advantage of a big business owner or investor over the self-employed or the employee is just that he creates money faster. Like growing up, I think it was a norm for me to hear that the rich get richer while the poor gets poorer. And then, because I wasn't exposed to know how wealth or how money is being created, I come to the terms of believe that that's how it works. But as growing up and trying to go through some research and studies, I understood that all these men actually apply the principle of leverage to create wealth. So the advantage over the employee or the self-employed is just that they try as much as possible to navigate themselves using the power or the manpower of the employees to create wealth.
I mean, when I used to grow up, I used to think that was a bad thing. I mean, they used to make it seem like, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That seemed like a very bad dichotomy, like they were, working on our backs.
Yeah.
But what I've come to understand in this journey of, understanding wealth creation is that the rich get richer simply because they understand one principle that the poor people do not understand, which is leverage.
Yeah. And also,
the beauty of this is leverage. For me, I feel like one of the advantages that they mainly get is, one, they have time freedom. I mean, you can see a rich man that's going to leave, he's going to leave his business and travel the world.
Like me, I want to travel.
Would you take me with you?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
We're going to run this show over there.
I want to go to Santori.
Manila.
Okay, so one thing they always did was they employed the principle of leverage. That gives them time freedom. Time freedom basically means that they get the time to enjoy their wealth without having to necessarily be clocking in at 8 o'clock. You put on the alarm at 6, you snooze, and then you wake up again at 8 o'clock, and then you go to bed at 10, and then you're up again at 8. It is a terrible
That's
thing.
not life.
I mean, they get to, someone said to me, the worst invention is alarm clock. You're supposed to wake up when you're done sleeping. I mean, why wake up when you're not done sleeping? But see, people enjoy that. The people using the principle of leverage, they enjoy to wake up whenever they want to. They go to work your boss is running at 2 p.m. and nobody's going to ask him any questions. Another thing is they enjoy what I call financial freedom, because most of them are earning on a daily based on your income. One thing you would ask a rich person is they would tell you that a rich person has a minimum of 7 streams of income.
And all of them are not showcased on the internet.
They do not showcase. They show the parts that they want you to see, and they don't tell you the other things they've done behind the scenes. Why? Because this gives them the ability. Imagine being able to earn daily. Imagine getting 1 million every single day. A lot of you, I know, a bunch of people would drop their job and fire their boss and be like, bye, I'm done with this. But you see, that is what the people that use leverage. That is one thing that they thing I would say is they use less energy.
Yeah.
They don't consume as much energy. I mean, an employee is there at 8, leaving at 7 or 8 p.m. That's almost 12 hours of work. Your boss can walk in at 12 and leave before 1 o'clock. I mean, you're not going to say, excuse me, sir. You just came in.
Unless you don't like that job anymore.
Except you want to be fired. You can't say that. But the thing I would say is one thing they do is they work smarter and not harder. They understand the principle of leverage, so they know how to use your ability, your knowledge, your energy to better themselves. Some quote I always keep in mind is by Francis J, which said, "My goal is no longer to get more work done, but to have less to do. The less you have to do, the more time freedom you enjoy. And by doing that, you allocate it to other people to do it for you. I mean, think of an organization, you have the accountants, you have the lawyers, you have the normal employees, you have the cleaner. Imagine one person having to do all of that. The man's going to collapse. So, I mean, that is basically what I feel is the advantage. So we should, proceed to the third question. I mean, the third question simply states, besides, leverage, like besides the principle of leverage, what is it that differs from people within this quadrant? Besides leverage, what difference do people in this quadrant have?
Wow, that's amazing. To me, I think it's 2 factors. One is mindset, and the other is programming. Let me explain what I mean by programming. Like I said, growing up, a lot of you know my story. I'm sure a lot of you have gone through my stories. And growing up, I grew up in a family or a place where money was a struggle, where we struggle a lot to get money. So that was my programming, and it affected my thinking as an individual. But thank God I navigated my way out of that. And Chioma, when I was growing up, I actually come to learn that the rich people are actually the most generous people on earth.
That's quite true, actually. I think
the poor are the greediest. Like, they are the greedy people. They have nothing to offer. So they have nothing absolutely to offer. And trust me, with time, I was actually learning, trying to understand what is this that the poor and the rich not have in common. What's their difference? What actually separates them is just their mindset. Like, the rich actually navigate or look for a possible way to get the work done. Why the poor
limit themselves by saying, I don't know how
they are always entitled. They have this entitlement mentality. So when I was going on this journey, or when I embarked on this journey, I stopped being a professional blamer, because I used to blame a lot of people for misfortunes.
I can't even lie, I used to do that too.
I blamed a lot. I was blaming on the government, blaming on my dad, blaming on my mom, and that didn't make sense. Does it make sense to you?
I mean, no. You should be in charge of your.
So my programming was a very, very big factor for me, because my friends, my associations, my church, my school, the people around me actually were just below average.
Fair enough.
They were just below average. I'm sorry, but that wasn't a very good thing. Yes, that wasn't a very good thing for me. Like, it actually affected me as a person, and I begin to see wealth as a very difficult thing, because money is the simplest thing to make. Trust me.
So now that your mindset has shifted, you see money as a very simple.
It's just the simplest thing. First of all, before you do that, you have to kill your mind. Something has to die inside you, and that's your mindset. If your programming is not right, trust me, money will be the most difficult thing for you to come back. You hustle, work. You will never learn the principles of wealth creation. Check it. Oyedipo was a very poor man, but he wasn't poor in his pocket. Sorry, in his mind. He was poor in his pocket. But that, he learned it. He had a rich mind. He wasn't poor in his pocket. Trust me, I've learned. I went to research, checking out all these rich men, Bill Gates, and they were all rich in their mind. Though the money was not manifesting from abroad, their mind was a rich mind. And that had to, because people say it's mind over body. That now, Mother Nature actually helped them and with consistency, it started surfacing.
So basically, you bring in back the law of attraction. When
Exactly.
you do something, basically, if you put in positive energy in your mind,
They
the world basically finds a way to attract those positive things
help
to
you.
you.
It just
Yes, personally, I would say I completely agree with Emeka. Mentality. One thing I always say is money alone does not make a person rich. Wealth is a product of man's capacity to think. It is only our minds and our doubts that limit us as a person. I feel like to answer that question for me, I would say the major thing is I want you to understand different people, different mindsets, different quadrants, different values. I feel like people in all these different quadrants, they idolize a different value. I feel like, think of it, people in the employee quadrant, they think of security. I want to get a good job that gives me a good pay, that brings good benefits for me and my family. It is different from a person that is self-employed. A person that is self-employed, their value is more like, I want to be independent. I don't want to work for somebody. I want to be on my own. But the thing is, people in these self-employed quadrants, like doctors, lawyers,
they still do the 100%
they do 100% of the work because they feel like they are the best man on the team. They feel like they can do nothing would work unless they're there. And that kind of thing honestly affects your life too. So now the people in the business owners, they are more of wealth building. They know that their ability is limited, but instead of dwelling on that, what they do is
they share the cost.
It's called distribution of labor.
They just share the cost.
They open a business and they employ 100 to 500 people to do the work that they cannot. By doing that, they make sure they do not limit their production to just their ability of what they can, the capability of what they can actually produce. And lastly, we have the investors, those that have think of financial freedom. They let their money work for them.
Yeah.
So that's it. So now, I think the fourth question that we have to examine is why do people majorly play in the quadrant? That's what I mean by the employee quadrant. Why do people play in that? Why do people become employees? Mainly why?
Because they've been programmed to do so.
Thank you.
That's what
it's programming.
You've been programmed to do so. You've been programmed to work under someone's shoe. You've been programmed to do the manual level. From our school, from our church, from our family. I could remember back then, my mom used to tell me, go to school, Emeka, get some good grades, graduate, find a job. That's me working for someone. That's me exchanging my time for someone. That's me trying to fit it into another person's picture. But the question, Chioma, before I proceed is, how can you simply become a business owner? I know this is the question for another day, but that's the question I'm sure our audience will be asking us.
I mean, I think it's something that we would address next week, but I want you to put it as a food for thought. How can you move from the left side to the right side?
Even with minimal capital.
Exactly. So the thing is, I would say honestly, that's the right thing. Programming. I mean, as a child, the first thing when you come out, when from the age of 2, you start going to school. I mean, going to school is entirely made to educate you on how to join the workforce. I mean, your mom, by the age of 10, your mom already expects you to pick a profession that you aspire to be. My mom wanted me to be a neurosurgeon. I love her with all my heart. But I kind of knew I was not going to be a neurosurgeon. So I picked a different profession. I wanted to be a barrister. That's it. But the thing is, nobody asks you, do you want to own a business? They ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? A lawyer, a banker, or a teacher, a doctor. Nobody asks you, okay, do you want to employ people? Do you want to be a business? Do you want to be an investor?
Do you want to be an entrepreneur?
No, everyone's concerned. Even when you go to your church, they congratulate, oh my God, she's
a doctor. She's a
barrister. All of these have all these high names.
Our father-in-law is the businessman that pays all these people.
It's actually the businessman that pay all these people. People already, even your culture. Our culture also influences us. That's another thing we must understand. In our culture, most people feel like, okay, once you grow up, be a lawyer, be a banker, that's where the money is. But all of this still means you're playing within the employee quadrant, or maybe self-employed quadrant. You're not using the principle of leverage. To bring our show to a close, we're going to ask the last question, which is, what would be your advice to people playing on the left-hand side, which is the employee and self-employed people? What would be your advice to them?
Chioma, like I said, my advice is people at the E&S quadrant, they should try as much as possible to navigate themselves, to start playing in the B and I quadrant.
Really?
Yeah, but the thing is, they don't know that yet. And I'm sure if we can actually try and map out something to educate our audience just
How to
to do that, yeah, to make that move. Because I'm sure they are curious. They are
And
actually
how
curious
we
on
can
how
make
they
the
can.
move.
Because how can someone like me, who doesn't have a million naira or even 100 million, start navigating myself and start playing in the big business owner quadrant, the B and I quadrant? It's just simple, like I said, it's mindset. My mindset has shifted, and that's what this show, I believe, is what it's all about. Chioma, am I correct?
Yes.
So with time, we are going to, probably by next week, we can show them or teach them, for those of them that are open-minded enough to take this step to navigate themselves from the E and S quadrant and start
B
playing.
and I quadrant.
Yeah.
So me personally, I would also say my advice to anybody is first and foremost, be or have a millionaire mindset.
Yeah.
You have to first of all be a millionaire in your mind before the figures can appear in your pocket. The reason why I say this is a lot of people win bets. Think of it. You know, you can play a bet and win 1 million, 3 million naira. But on average, people that win money from betting, within the next 1 year, come back to them, they've lost all this money. Why? Because they do not have a millionaire mindset. You have to have that mindset, first of all, to be able to, manage that amount of wealth. You have to become a millionaire in your mind. So that when the figures manifest in your pocket, you are able to effectively manage those figures. The second thing I would say to them is change your circle. Always aspire to be the poorest person in your circle. What I mean by this is, basically, no.
You can't be the poor. You can't be the poorest person when you have a circle of poor people.
I mean, that's why. Let me explain myself, please.
Okay.
So why I say this is, surround yourself with people that are wealthier than you. Why? It is easier for somebody to be when you're surrounded with people that can pull you up, as opposed to be around people that can pull you down. If you're the richest person in your circle, it is easier for them to pull you down to their level. But if you're the poorest person in your circle and you have people that you aspire to become, they can all pull you up to their level. So the entire thing is change your circle. You want to be around people that teach you and do not distract you from your goal. Keep your mind focused on where you are going. If you want to be rich or wealthy, surround yourself with wealthy people. That way you can always grow. And the last thing I would say to you is, as a person, understand your programming and start resetting that programming. If you can reset your programming, figure out where your default in your programming is, it is easier for you to change. I mean, think of it. If you should print out, if you make a typo error and you print it out and you try and erase that error, the error will still be in your computer where you typed it. But if you go back to your computer and change the error from your computer, when you print it out, you don't have to erase it. So I would say change your programming. So that is my advice to all of you today.
All right. I think this topic is very,
very
enlightening. And I want to actually add something for our viewers out there who are curious to go through what I want to share. As this is a gift from me,
us?
Okay, from us to you guys. I actually have 2 books I want to share with them. One is The Secret of a Millionaire Mind. It's going to help navigate some programming and change some of their thinkings. And also the Cashflow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. Chioma, is there a way for us to upload those books?
Yes, so what I would do is, as a gift from us to you, we would be uploading the Cashflow Quadrant. I would put a link so that all of you can be able to download it, access the book, so you can read it, expand your mind. And I think that brings us, this is so sad, but this brings us to the end of today's episode. But as usual, it has been an amazing time,
very amazing.
talking and discussing with all of you. So, till next week, please don't forget to follow, like, share,
do whatever you know
subscribe.
how to do best.
Do what you know how to do best, Until next week, it has been the best. And as always, I am your faithful co-host, Chioma&Emeka, and with me is
Emeka Vincent Zuru.
And with this, we say to you,